Hello, and welcome to the Art of Living Well podcast. I'm Stephanie May Potter, and I'm here with my co-host, Marnie Dotches-Marmette.
We created the Art of Living Well podcast to empower you to live your happiest, healthiest, and most authentic life. Each week, we will bring you inspiring and motivating conversations covering health and wellness topics, including fitness, mindset, food, travel, product reviews, and strategies from a variety of experts, including our own bank of knowledge.
We are excited to educate, motivate, and inspire you to change the way you perceive health and discover your art of living well. Get ready to feel inspired.
Welcome to episode 11 of the Art of Living Well podcast. I'm Marnie Dotches-Marmette, and I'm here with my co-host Stephanie May Potter. And today we have on the show Beth Lipton, and I'm so excited that she is with us today. Beth is a New York City-based recipe developer and food wellness writer. Her recipes and writing regularly appear in Clean Eating and Paleo magazines and on Epicurious, Clean Plates, Furthermore, foodnetwork.com, and more. She's the former food director at Health Magazine and the author of 2 cookbooks, Peaches, and You Made That Dessert. Beth is the resident chef at Middleberg Nutrition, where she teaches one-on-one and group cooking classes. She is a graduate of the chef training program at Natural Gourmet Institute and the pastry arts program at Walnut Hill College. And she has a BA in journalism from the University of Southern California. So I'm so excited to have Beth here today. We're going to hear all about her one-pan meals, which are so easy and simple to make. And Beth, thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm so excited to have a conversation with Beth today. We were actually accountability partners when we were both students at IIN, the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. And it's so nice to connect with you again after all these years, Beth.
Oh, likewise. I mean, I feel like I stalk you all over social media, so it's nice to
I do the same. So I love seeing all your posts. So tell us in a nutshell a little bit about your background.
So I went to culinary school twice because I can't leave well enough alone. The first time was right after college. I had studied journalism at the University of Southern California, and then I went to culinary school when all of my smart friends were like in med school and law school, and I studied pastry. And so it was like classic kind of French pastry, and I did that for a while. And then I went back, I kind of left the kitchen and went back into journalism and did a whole bunch of work at a whole bunch of different kinds of magazines and websites. And I did that for many years and always just cooked and was interested in that, but didn't do it professionally. I went to work at Hearst magazines for Startup Women's Weekly magazine, which since folded, but they kind of kept throwing me all the food coverage because I was the only one who had any food background. So I was just covering that. And then one day the editor-in-chief said, I guess we should hire a food editor. And I was like, well, what about me? And she said, okay, you're the food editor. And that was like 15 plus years ago. And I was a food editor there, and then at All You magazine, and then at Health magazine. And during that process, I went back to culinary school, to a health supportive culinary school here in New York City called Natural Gourmet Institute. And I studied I went to the chef training program there. I was already writing about healthy food and cooking healthy food and developing recipes, but I really liked school and I wanted to immerse myself in, in that community. So I studied health supportive cooking, and I did an internship in a restaurant, and that sort of, and then things just kind of moved in that direction. I still write about food and wellness quite a bit, but I would say probably 70% of my job is recipe development for different magazines and websites. So I write for Clean Eating and Paleo magazine, and Furthermore, which is the Equinox magazine, and Epicurious and Food Network, and just a bunch of others.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
Cool.
It sounds so exciting.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, I'm so grateful. I love my work. I never thought I would be a freelancer. I never thought I'd be out on my own. And it turns out I love it. Life is funny that way. I love it. And I love the work I do. And I can't believe that I'm able to have this as my job. Like, I play with food all day. It's just the best.
Yeah. Sounds perfect. I'm sure your family likes it as well, right?
Sometimes.
I'm sure you're there. Are they your guinea pigs?
My husband is, yes. And if I make something and it needs another round, but it's not bad, he still has to eat it. So.
Right. So as a recipe developer, what is your approach then to healthy eating, and how does that translate into the recipes that you develop?
So I'm fortunate in that most of my recipe development work is healthy. That's because I specialize in that. People tend to seek me out for that. But, healthy means different things to different people. So I just finished a huge project doing all these different keto desserts for Eat This, Not That. And it was a really fun project. And I think the desserts all came out really good. But I don't think that's something that you're going to normally eat every day. That's something that you make as a treat. And the keto approach versus a paleo approach versus just sort of a more traditional healthy eating approach. They're all different. And they're all valid in their own way, depending on what your individual needs are. But it definitely, healthy food and healthy eating is definitely the thrust of my work.
And how did when you went back to IIN, at what point, I guess, in your career as a recipe developer did you do that? And how maybe has that impacted or not the recipes that you're developing? And just kind of your overall approach to developing.
So I went to IIN. I was still at Health Magazine, and I had finished culinary school for the second time. And, I was interested in coaching, and I was interested in the breadth of information that the IIN offered about all the different dietary approaches. So I found it, really useful. It doesn't so much play into my recipe development work as much as it plays into the rest of my writing around wellness. I do write regular articles as well. And then also I work for one of the websites I work for is called Clean Plates. And I do a lot of work for them and have worked for them for several years. And the founder is also an IIN graduate. And, the cool thing about Clean Plates is that the whole approach to all the articles and all the work that we do there, all the projects we do there, is that it comes from the IIN approach of bioindividuality. And I find most magazines and websites and stuff, they have a very specific point of view for the most part. Clean Plates is very open-minded and very much about exploring and curiosity around health and about finding what works for you individually, as opposed to saying, you should do this. It's well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So I love the work I do at Clean Plates. I think Clean Plates is amazing and really unique. So my IIN background has really helped with that.
So in terms of all these recipes you're developing, how do you think home cooking has changed in general? Are people cooking more at home? Is there a certain demand for different, what kinds of recipes are in demand right now?
Yeah, it's funny. In a lot of ways, home cooking is very much the same. In a lot of ways, home cooking is very different. So the ways in which it is the same over the many years I've worked in consumer magazines around food, and again, that's over 15 years, is that we always want things to be quick and easy. We need them to be, right? Because we're all so busy and our lives are so full, especially if we have families and stuff. We work, we have kids, all the things that we do. We have, partners and friends and hobbies, and there's so many things going on. You don't want to spend an hour and a half in the kitchen making dinner. That's just not realistic for most people. So quick and easy is definitely, it has been and still remains something that people really want. Where things are different is, for one thing, there's become this, I find a lot of tribalism around food. So you have to kind of pick a side, you're plant-based or you're paleo or you're this, you're that. And so there's a lot of demand now for recipes to fall into one of those categories. And I find I'm hired a lot for, some very sort of specific things. Like that. But to me, the most exciting change around food and demand and what people are looking for is that the food companies have to be much more accountable now to consumers in terms of what's in the food. So, and there have been studies on this, that millennials in particular are very, they really are expecting to know about not the origin of their food, how their food was raised, how it affects the environment, what all the individual ingredients are. Like that is, I think, really new to millennials, to that generation. And I think it benefits everyone, because quality of food to me is more important. If you can pick a tribe and you can pick an eating style, and, you can switch around between them, and maybe it matters and maybe it doesn't, but no matter how you're eating, the quality of your food really matters. And when you have a whole group of consumers who are insisting upon knowing the origin and the quality of their food, that helps everybody.
Which I love that. I'm so happy that's the way the world is going.
Yeah. And you can see it reflected in the products. I mean, just walk through the supermarket. Most people don't study food in the supermarket the way I do, because I'm food obsessed.
I think we both do.
Yeah. But, most people that's just 1/1,000,000th of their day. So they're just kind of picking the brands and the products they want. But if you guys know, if you study those packages, you can see there's a lot more information. And even the nutrition labels have changed for that reason. So
exactly. I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
So tell us about, I know you've written a couple of cookbooks. Tell us about those cookbooks and how they've evolved maybe over the last 10 to 15 years. And where people can find them as well.
I've written 2 cookbooks. One came out in 2009, and I always remember because I gave birth to that and my daughter the same year, not at the same time. But that one's called "You Made That Dessert," and it's not healthy. It's straight up desserts, white flour, white sugar, all of that. But the idea behind it is that even if you can't cook at all, even if you have 0 skills in the kitchen, you can't even boil water, you can open this book to any page and make any of the desserts, because I explain everything in minute detail so that there's no confusion. Because I found that a lot of cookbooks assume a certain background, and I just looked around among my friends, and a lot of them just didn't have, they didn't grow up in the kitchen with their moms, or dads. There just wasn't that kind of basic cooking information, but they wanted to sometimes make something. So the book was meant for that. And then a few years ago, I wrote another book about peaches. It's part of a series called Short Stack Editions. And they're these digest-sized books that are all single subject. So my subject was peaches, and it was so much fun. So there's, 25 or so recipes in the book. If you Google Short Stack Editions, and maybe we'll put it in the show notes, you can find mine, but you can find all the other ones too. And you can buy a 4-pack and get different ingredients. So it's actually a really nice holiday gift to give somebody, not necessarily just mine, but all the Short Stack books. So that was really fun. And I was definitely doing more healthy cooking and recipe development at that time, although that book specifically isn't meant that way. So it doesn't have a healthy food bent to it. And so those are the 2 books. I've contributed to other books as well, but those are my 2 cookbooks. And then most of my recipes that I develop for magazines and stuff, I try to put in my Instagram, either the full recipe or a link to it. So that's how you can find my stuff.
And speaking of Instagram, do you think with all the food photos everywhere, especially for Marnie and I, probably the people that we follow, you end up looking at all these beautiful food photos. Do you think that has, sparked an increase in at least an interest that people have of getting back in the kitchen a little bit more?
I hope so. I hope so. I sometimes worry that it makes people feel more intimidated when they see these gorgeous photos. I worry sometimes, I don't know if that's true, but I worry sometimes that it makes people feel more pressured, and then they kind of have this feeling of well, I can't make my food look like that, so just forget it.
Right.
So I hope that's not what happens. I hope it's more inspiring than that. But I like everybody, I have kind of mixed feelings about social media. I'm on it all the time, but I hope it's doing us good. I don't know.
Right. So I know we talked a little bit about your cookbooks, but I'm super excited to learn more about this one-pan meal course that you've written, and just in general, if we can talk about one-pan meals.
Yeah. So
give our listeners some tips.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I created 2 courses with Clean Eating magazine. One of them is Easy No Mess One-Pan Meals, and the other is High Protein Meals for Energy and Fat Loss. And they're both really fun. There's a ton of video, lots of recipes, and tons of tips. And the one pan meals one, we didn't pick a pan. So, I mean, we picked 3. So it covers sheet pans, Dutch ovens, and skillets. So no matter what your sort of pan of choice is, there's a ton for you. So that's what I love about the course.
That's so awesome. And can you just explain what that means, a one pan meal?
Right. Like, are you really just using one pan, and how do you cook a variety of different types of vegetables and meats that need different cooking times?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. So the idea really is that you're only using one pan. You may need to use like a bowl to whisk something, to whisk a sauce or something. But the idea is to really, really minimize. And in terms of cooking, you're only using the one vessel. And so a lot of what we cover is just what you're saying, that, you don't want your one pan meal to be one texture and one flavor. You want to have that variety. So we offer a lot of tips for how to do that. And a lot of it is around timing, knowing kind of your ingredients a little bit. So if you have, let's say you have some potatoes or a root vegetable, something that's more dense, and then you have some lighter vegetables, maybe you have broccoli or peppers or something like that, how you can cook them both on the same pan and have them both have the texture that they are supposed to have. So how to do that. And there's tons and tons of tips. Like one of them is to, like if you're using a sheet pan, for example, is to make 3 different packets out of parchment, and you cook you cook different things in each packet.
Ooh,
so
that's a good idea.
Right. So and it's like stuff it's not sort of intuitive. It's just like a tip, right? So that way you have 3 different things going on. And when you serve the meal, it's as if you cooked in 3 different vessels, but you just used one sheet pan. And with a, we talk about how to use the broiler, because when you think about a sheet pan, most people just think about roasting or baking, but you can also use your broiler, and that saves a lot of time, as well as giving you kind of a different cooking experience. And with a skillet, kind of the idea of like cooking your protein and then taking it out of the pan and deglazing the pan and maybe adding your vegetables then, and either adding the meat back later or just letting it rest, and just all about how to do the timing so that it's not stressful and you really learn how to get the most out of that one vessel. And then when you're done with dinner, you don't have a mountain of dishes to wash, because nobody wants that.
No. And I
don't.
I love cooking, but I hate the cleanup time.
Yeah. Who doesn't? I mean, you don't do that. You've had a busy day. You cooked a meal, because that's not easy to do at the end of the day.
Right.
The one thing you want after all that is a mountain of dishes.
Exactly. Right. Especially when you have to leave, take your kids somewhere, and then you come home like 2 hours later to like a sink full of dirty dishes. It just drives me. That's just a way to ruin my night.
No joke. Yeah. You want to relax at that point.
Right. So would you say the one pan meals are pretty easy for people in terms of stress? Are there a lot of ingredients to shop for and a lot of prep, or what would you say the involvement is in general?
It varies a little bit, but ultimately the goal for one pan meals, and really for everything that I do, is simplicity. Ingredients that you can find in the supermarket, not having to go to 10 different stores to find specialty ingredients. Ingredients that fit within your budget. So maybe you're going to spend a little extra if you're doing like a holiday meal, but for the average weeknight dinner, most of us don't have a gajillion dollars to spend. So how to kind of maximize that? Because to me, there's so much stress, potential stress involved around cooking. So to me, when I look at a course like this, I'm looking at how to minimize stress through the whole process, deciding what to make, shopping for ingredients, cooking the meal, and cleaning up, and serving it to your family too. Because it doesn't matter how healthy it is if nobody's eating it, right? And you've wasted your time and your money and you feel terrible. So the food has to be delicious. Like, that's a given. So I tried to think about the stress through the entire process and see where it could be minimized. And definitely not looking at a recipe that has 20 ingredients. Because, I cook for a living, and I'm not going to do that on the average weeknight. So I don't expect somebody who's not food obsessed to do that.
That's so valuable, because I think most, articles and cookbooks and things that you read, unless they're geared towards, quick 30-minute meals, they're not taking into account the stress factor for the average chef, right?
We know, because of our IIN background, that that the stress of it affects the whole meal. You know,
Right.
how you feel,
Yes.
right? How you feel when you sit down at that table, it matters. It affects the mood for everyone sitting at the table. It affects how well you digest your food. So healthy eating isn't just the collection of nutrients on your plate. Healthy eating is all of it.
Oh my
Right.
gosh, I love that. I mean, because if you think about, you want to have a nice conversation with your family, but if you sit down with them and you're stressed and you're mad and you're angry and they're hungry, I mean, the energy in the room is enough to like make your stomach like, do circles without even eating the food yet, right?
Yeah.
And that's not going to help with your digestion either.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And what about just like spices and, how you can cook similar things? So like just from a grocery shopping and meal prep and meal planning, how you can really change up a meal with just a variety of spices or.
Yeah. Well, I mean, spices and fresh herbs too, but that's a little bit more loaded because they're perishable. But spices, I think, are such in our sort of Western culture, a very underutilized tool. So not only to change up the flavor of your food, but spices actually add a ton of nutrition to your food as well. It's like a gift from nature, right? It makes your food taste better and it's better for you. So what I always tell people to do is, especially if you're kind of cooking the same foods over and over again, which I know is something that people do. They buy food in bulk, you go to like Costco or whatever, and you get a whole bunch of chicken, or you're dealing with people, different people in your family who have different tastes, and they only like, the whole collection of people at the table only likes these 7 foods. So part of managing that is making those foods fresh and new every time you serve them. And one way to do that is with spices. And it's great to have a huge variety of spices in your spice cabinet if you have space for it and sort of the patience for it. But I think also something to remember about spices, they don't go bad. They're not going to be bad for you, but they do lose their potency. Mm-hmm. So you can tell right away, right? The color fades and the aroma fades. So, I mean, if you have a jar of a spice and you haven't used it since you moved into your house 6 years ago, toss it away. Right? If you think about it, just throw it away. But if you're not sure, if it's been 6 months or a year and you're just not sure, all you have to do is open up that jar and look at it and smell it. And if it looks faded and it doesn't have a bright aroma, then it's no longer going to have the potency that you want. So if you can buy your spices in bulk, and Whole Foods does that, but other stores do that too. I think Sprouts does it also. And your local store may do it. It's always a great idea to buy bulk spices and just buy a smaller amount. If you have a spice in your spice cabinet that you bought for some recipe and you don't even remember what it tastes like, I have been there. I recommend sprinkling a little bit on something neutral, like scrambled eggs. And just sort of relearning what that flavor is and then using it, use it on your chicken, use it on your broccoli or your potatoes or whatever kind of neutral food you have. I think spice blends are a great tool, especially for people, if you tend to you got to make dinner in like 10 minutes, a spice blend is just a fantastic tool because you don't have to worry about mixing and matching. You're only messing up one spoon, or just your fingers, it's super easy. So, taco seasoning, Italian seasoning, curry is a spice blend. Za'atar is a spice blend. It's Mediterranean. Mm-hmm. So, find the ones that you like and use them. And somebody said something to me recently, like, oh, isn't that cheating? And I was like, listen, I am all about cheating.
Yeah.
It's going to help you get dinner. It's going to help you get a delicious dinner on the table. Oh my God, cheat by all means.
Right, exactly.
Totally. Think about it. Yeah.
What are your top 3 favorite spices?
Oh, that's like picking a favorite child.
I know. Or spice blends or something. Yeah.
So, I always say this and it's sort of funny. It's not very chefy, but I really like onion powder and garlic powder. Mm-hmm. I use them for very specific things. I don't like raw garlic, so I just feel like it takes over. So garlic powder is really nice when you don't have time to cook the garlic or the recipe for one reason or another doesn't allow for it. And also texture-wise. So like for meatballs, I make meatballs all the time, and I always use garlic powder and onion powder because I don't particularly like that experience of having like the little pieces of onion and garlic. I'm not saying it's wrong to have it. If you like it, do it, but I don't particularly like it. So I use onion powder and garlic powder for that. I always have cinnamon. I always have, I mean, you should see my spice rack. It's ridiculous, but I do use a lot of blends. I created a taco seasoning blend for Clean Eating magazine, and I have some of it and I use it. I made that myself, but you can buy a good taco seasoning blend. I love za'atar. I use it all the time. So yeah, Herbs de Provence is really nice, a really nice blend. Yeah. Yeah. But I really think there isn't any right or wrong when it comes to this. You know, different people, you may come from a culture that uses specific spices. So if that's true for you, then, you know, definitely lean on that.
Do you have any tips on selecting a spice? Like, I know sometimes people will ask me like, oh, but what about the sodium? You know, some of the spice blends are loaded with a lot of salt. So do you have any tips when you're kind of going to being in the grocery store and looking at a label?
So I think spices are, you know, we talked about budget earlier, but I think spices are a place that it's if you're going to spend a little more money, spices are a good place to do that because you get a lot for your money. So I tend to buy organic spices. And again, you're going to have a little sticker shock, but just remember, you're going to have that jar. You're going to use it for a number of different dishes. And then just check the label. And if there's, you know, if you see an ingredient that you don't recognize, it's just like anything else. I wouldn't buy it if I don't know what it is. And that is something to watch out for with taco seasoning because some of them are full of like anti-caking agents and things like that. And you don't need that.
Yep.
You don't need that.
And where can people find you? Like they want to buy your cookbooks. They want to follow your Instagram.
Right.
Where are you?
Yeah. Well, Instagram is definitely I mean, I have a website, it's bethlipton.com, but I think Instagram is the best place to look for me because I post recipes there and stuff. And my Instagram is cookiepie0402.
And where did you get the cookie pie? I always wondered that.
So cookie pie is what my mother calls me.
Oh,
I'm in my 40s and my mother still to this day calls me cookie pie. So
sweet.
Well, maybe that's how you ended up in, you know, pastry chef school, right? You always had it.
Yeah. And then 0402 is my daughter's birthday.
Okay.
Got it. So one question we always ask all of our guests is, what does the art of living well mean to you?
So to me, I think that's such a beautiful question and something we probably all don't think about enough. But to me, the art of living well is living the life that works for you so that you can give to others. So, you know, I think we as women and we as parents and all of that, we tend to our instinct is just to give. And that's not a bad instinct, but you really have to take care of yourself in order to show up in the world in all the different ways that we show up in the best way that you can. So really figuring out what are those things that you need to do. Like I need to work out every day. I need to meditate. If I don't, and I need to sleep. Mm-hmm. If I don't do those things, I can't show up and be who I want to be for all the things I want to do. So take the time for yourself to figure out what those sort of non-negotiables are for you and let yourself have them, because not only is it going to make your life more pleasant for yourself, which is a valid enough reason to do it, but it's also going to allow you to give the most of yourself in the best way that you can to all the people and things that you want to give it to.
That's beautiful.
That was so beautiful. That's exactly what I was thinking. I mean,
thank you.
What a great way to end the interview, actually.
And
wonderful.
Actually, one more thing, Beth, if people want to buy your courses, you have a code, right?
I do, yes. I'll give you the URLs to put in your show notes. And if you use the code BethSaves, you get 30% off.
Awesome. And you know, one question I did want to ask about the course is, how long is it?
They're considered what Clean Eating calls crash courses. So they're like meant to be done over a weekend. They're pretty short. It's not like a 6-week course.
Okay.
Definitely like more bite-sized. So you can kind of take the information and run.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was really an honor.
Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye, Beth.
I am so ready for our liver detox and group coaching program to start on January 13th.
Oh, I'm right there with you, Marnie. This holiday season has been so much fun, but come January, I know my liver needs a break, and I'm ready to just remove a lot of the toxins that are in our body. And I've been consuming a few more of them lately.
Totally. And coming home from vacation and just starting out the new year where you give your system a break to reduce inflammation and improve your digestion. It's a 7-day liver detox. There's support and accountability.
We're going to have an amazing group, and you'll get full access to Marnie and myself on a daily basis. You also get recipes that are liver detox friendly and easy and delicious to make for you and your family.
We would love to have you join our community. We're going to be offering 2 different programs. The first one is the 7-day functional medicine liver detox. And this year we're including a 5-week add-on option called Nourish to Flourish in the New Decade. And we're doing that because we've heard from a lot of our clients that they are feeling like it's really hard to just jump back into life after the 7-day detox, right? They want more.
Exactly. So they feel so great, but then they're trying to figure out how to incorporate some of the new habits that they learned into everyday life. And we can also work with you through adding back additional foods that you had eliminated over the 7 days, help you navigate with that. We're going to offer weekly live video sessions. There's going to be private daily support for this community.
And we're going to be covering topics, mindset related, sleep, stress, and anxiety, and a whole host of other topics that
will really help you dive in and hone in on maybe why you're making certain choices, or a lot of us with the mindless eating, we want to really dive in and focus on getting to the root of some of our behaviors.
And then empower you to shift your mindset so you can really start to incorporate these habits into your daily life.
Exactly.
So if you want to sign up, we'd love to have you join this amazing community. Go on over to theartoflivingwell.us/programs, and you can get a lot of more detailed information.
And certainly reach out to us if you have any questions.
And we'd love to have you as part of our community.
Happy New Year.
Thank you so much for listening to the Art of Living Well podcast. We are so grateful that you joined us today.
If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend or anyone else you think may benefit from this information. We'd love for you to subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, and tag the Art of Living Well podcast on social media.
If you want more inspiration in between episodes, you can find us on social media at theartofliving_well on Instagram and Facebook, where we will share snippets from our daily lives and our journey to living well.